I am live. I'm reading The Comedians. It's a book by Greene, published in 1966, plays largely in Haiti, and we are now in the third part of this book. It's chapter 4, and I have just finished the Roman 1, and I am now at Roman 2. We are coming to the end. Mr. Brown, who writes the story, is no longer in Haiti. He is now in Santo Domingo, and I continue. I drove to the Ambassador Hotel on the outskirts of Santo Domingo, where Mr. Smith was staying. It wasn't the right setting for him, or so it seemed to me. I had become accustomed to the stooping figure, the mild and modest face, and the wild white hair, in surroundings of poverty. In this wide, glittering hall, men sat wearing purses on their belts instead of revolver holsters, and when they wore dark glasses, it was only to save their eyes from the bright light. There was a continuous rattle from the one-armed bandits, and you could hear the calls from the croupier in the casino. Everyone had money here, even Mr. Smith. Poverty was out of sight down in the city. A girl in a bikini wearing a gay bathrobe came in from the swimming pool. She asked at the desk whether a Mr. Hochstrudel Jr. had arrived yet. I mean, Mr. Wilbur K. Hochstrudel. The clerk said no, but Mr. Hochstrudel is expected. I sent a message to Mr. Smith that I was below and found myself a seat. At the table nearest me, the men were drinking rum punches, and I thought of Joseph's. He made better ones than they served here, and I missed him. I had stayed only 24 hours with Philippot. He was polite enough to me in a restrained way, but he was a changed man from the one I used to know. I had been a good audience in the past for his Bodleian verses, but I was too old for war. It was Jones he needed now, and Jones' company, which he sought. He had 9 men with him in his hideout, and to hear him talking to Jones you would have imagined he commanded at least a battalion. Jones very wisely listened and didn't speak much. But once I woke during the night I spent with them and heard Jones say, "You have to establish yourself near enough to the frontier for newspapermen to come over. Then you can demand recognition." Were they really in this hole among the rocks? And they changed their hole, I learned each day, already thinking in terms of provisional government? They had with them 3 old Tommy guns from the police station, which had probably seen service first in the days of Al Capone, a couple of First War rifles, a shotgun, 2 revolvers, and one man had nothing better than his machete. Jones added, like an old hand, "This kind of war is a bit like a confidence trick. There was one way we deceived the Japs. He hadn't found his golf course, but I really believe he was happy. The men clustered close. They couldn't understand a word he said, but it was as though a leader had come into the camp." Next day I was sent off with Joseph as my guide to try to cross the Dominican frontier. My car and the bodies had been long discovered by now, and there was no safety for me anywhere in Haiti. They could spare Joseph easily because of his damaged hip, and he could fulfill at the same time a second function. Philippot planned that I was to slip over the international road which divided the 2 republics for about 50 kilometers north of Banica. It was true that Every few kilometers on either side of the road there were Haitians and Dominican guardposts. But it was said, with what truth he wanted to find out, that the posts on the Haitian side were deserted at night for fear of a guerrilla attack. All peasants had been expelled from the border, but there was said to be still that party of about 30 men operating in the mountains with which Philippot wanted to make contact. Joseph's information would be of value if he got back, and he was more expendable than the others, I suppose. His lame walk was considered slow enough to enable a man of my age to keep up with him. The last words Jones said to me in private were, "I'm going to keep it up, old man." And the golf club? The golf club's for old age, after we've taken Port-au-Prince. The journey was slow, rough and tiring, and took us 11 days, 9 days of lying up, of sudden dashes from one point to another, of doubling on our tracks, and finally 2 last days of imprudence because of hunger. I was glad enough when we came in sight at dusk from our grey eroded mountain where nothing grew, of the deep Dominican forest. You could see all the twists of the frontier by the contrast between our bare rocks and their vegetation. It was the same mountain range, but the trees never crossed into the poor dry land of Haiti. Halfway down the slope was a Haitian guard post, a collection of decrepit huts, and across the track, 100 yards from it, was a castelled fort, like something from the Spanish Sahara. A little before dusk we saw the Haitian guards straggle out, leaving not one sentinel behind. We watched them go to God knows what hideout. There were no roads or villages where they could escape the pitiless rock. Then I said goodbye to Joseph, making some silly joke about rum punch, and scrambled down the track of a meagre stream on the international road. A grand name for a track, little better than the Great Southern Highway to Orcas. Next morning, the Dominicans put me on an army truck which came daily to the fort with supplies, and I landed in Santo Domingo in torn and dusty clothes, with 100 unchangeable gourds in my pocket and $50 American comprised in a single note, which I had sewn for safety into the lining of my pants. With the help of that note, I took a room and a bath and cleaned myself up, and slept for 12 hours before I went to beg for money at the British consulate and for expatriation. To where? And I stop this here for now, and we'll continue this soon. Today is the 11th of November 2025, and it is a Tuesday.